the bottom line, because Stone Cold sets it.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
This is The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast starring Renny D and friends. Thanks for listening to The Pencil. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
What up, everybody, and welcome to The Pencil. It is episode 3, and we have a big episode. And as always, Travis, Dirty, Mester on the line with us. Dirt, how's it going, brother?
Oh, it's going all right. It's going all right. I haven't gotten out and golfed all week, but I'm here. It's Tuesday, so let's talk pencil.
But we're going to talk pencil. It is Tuesday. It's funny, man. I got the golf this weekend, but it was pretty shitty, to be honest with you. I golfed 18, but I'm guessing you're probably going to get a chance to get out there and hit the links, and I'm guessing it's not going to be very pretty when you do.
Yeah, you're probably right. I hate to say it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm still rehabbing from my knee injury, so we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we got some information here to talk about as far as coming off a WWE Raw last night. But first, I want to let everybody know that we have a very special guest tonight on The Pencil. His name now is Lance Hoyt or Lance Archer, depending on where you see him. He's a current New Japan Professional Wrestling Tag Team super stud. He also wrestles the independent scenes here. Just recently won the Heavy On Wrestling Heavyweight Championship title. Heavy On Wrestling is a promotion here in the Midwest, one of the bigger ones at that. Former WWE talent known as Vance Archer, former TNA talent. Dude's been all over, so we're pretty excited to have him. And to be honest with you, I think we're going to have a pretty lengthy conversation with them, so more than likely it's probably going to carry over into next week's episode. So we'll give you the first half here tonight, and we'll share the second half with you next week. It'll kind of give you something to hold out for after the long Labor Day weekend. Dirt, you got any plans for this weekend, man? You going to go out and get drunk and do something stupid, or what's going on?
I got Wisconsin Badgers football season beginning on Saturday night. We're going to take down LSU on Saturday on our way to hopefully getting in that Final Four for the first year of college football's Final Four. So let's go Badgers. Let's go Wisconsin. Big start on Saturday.
Big start. And we are huge Wisconsin Badger fans. So all you Minnesotans listening to this podcast, sorry, maybe some year you'll have a team that can compete with us. Actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm not sorry. It is what it is. I had my first big fantasy football draft last night. Probably not the greatest in the books after our conversation with Jason Powell last week. He never tweeted out any expectations for a first-round pick for me. Have you done your draft yet, Dirt, or are you still waiting for your first one to come out?
My first and only one is coming up Thursday night, so I'll be able to let you know next week. Hopefully I can have my first-place squad already put into its roster.
Yeah, absolutely. Might have a recap next week on that one for you. All right, people. WWE Monday Night Raw going head-to-head against NBC, the Primetime Emmys. Here's the thing. Vince knows when you go against big-time events, you need to do something special. Now, the opening of the Monday Night Football season, big-time event. Monday Night Football in general typically is a big event, but he doesn't need to go all out for every single week because then it's going to stretch things and it's not going to be as special of an occasion. One thing last night that they did on Monday Night Raw was to have a Hall of Fame panel because they wanted to attract viewers of all ages to watch Monday Night Raw over the Primetime Emmys. The Hall of Fame panel consisted of Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, and Ric Flair. First off, the choice or the selection of the Hall of Fame panel, Travis, were you happy with the Hall of Fame panel? Did you hope maybe you'd see somebody else on it? Or what were your thoughts as far as the actual individuals chosen to be on that panel last night to open the show?
I thought the selections were fine, to be honest. I didn't have an issue with the selections. I mean, sure, there's some guys that you'd like to see every now and again, but I'm kind of like you, like we mentioned last week. I don't need to see those guys on TV too often to keep me coming back. So I don't think they're necessarily aiming that towards you and I. So I was fine with the selections. Ric Flair, entertaining as usual. Hulk Hogan's been on a lot the last handful of months. Shawn Michaels is always great. So I was okay with the selections.
Yeah, and I actually thought it was good. I mean, you have two of the best wrestlers of all time, and Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, and then you got Hulk Hogan, who is arguably the biggest name in professional wrestling history. So these guys very much define the definition of Hall of Fame WWE superstar. So I was perfectly fine with the three of them as well. Also, with that, all three of them have a close personal relationship with John Cena. Probably because John Cena is going to be, if there's a Mount Rushmore, John Cena might be on that Mount Rushmore professional wrestling. So he really befriends the three of these people. So it made sense. It really was a good way to start the show. However, it really seemed like the live crowd didn't appreciate the fact they started the show with this segment. I guess I agree with WWE to start the show with this segment because you have the draw ability, I guess, of the three Hall of Famers, not to mention John Cena, the biggest name in professional wrestling. I'm not disappointed that they started the show this way. One thing that I really did like about the Hall of Fame panel was the fact that they still sell it when they talk about professional wrestling like they don't know the outcome, like it's a boxing match. And I thought that's really cool, and I think they need that back in WWE. They need that back on Monday Night Raw, and especially surrounding this match when you're dealing with Brock Lesnar, who is a former MMA, UFC World Heavyweight Champion, going against John Cena, the WWE face of the WWE. So that was cool. I really appreciate the fact that they actually argued with each other and that they were straight shooters saying, hey, not a chance in hell can John Cena win this match. Brock Lesnar is going to beat him from pillar to post. So that I thought was actually good. Did you feel the use of their time on television, I guess, was believable? What drew you in to be interested in what they were saying, or were you kind of like, whatever, I've seen this before?
I felt a little bit like the latter. I thought that it seemed a little forced. I didn't think that. I mean, there was three guys in the ring. I don't know how good Hulk Hogan is normally on the mic. He's got some entertaining lines, but I mean, when you look at John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, those three are usually pretty darn entertaining on the mic, and they're going to get their points across. I thought last night was not any of their best work. I don't know if they had certain things they needed to say and get across, and they were given a script, but that's almost how it felt to me while I was watching it. So I didn't think it was any of their best performances, but it's nothing. It was nothing to complain about completely, but it didn't grab my attention the way that I had anticipated it would.
What did you think of Cena's, I guess, promo in that opening segment?
I thought it was exactly what I expected to hear. I thought it was the same old John Cena that everybody expects to hear. I was hoping to find something different, to have him come out and say something other than "you can't keep me down." But that's his character. That's who he is. Maybe, they've been doing it for years. They're just going to keep doing it, it appears. So maybe one day they'll surprise us, but it wasn't yesterday.
Right, and I really think that even just a change of attire. If John came out last night wearing blue jeans, no t-shirt, no sweatbands, no weird colors, that even proves a statement that John Cena is a changed man like they talked about last night. Shawn Michaels said that this type of match changes you coming out of it, and then John Cena came back with, you're right, it does change you. Well, come out. I understand you got t-shirts to sell. I understand you got towels you need to sell. Fantastic. But just for 1 second, just change it up a little bit to really show the viewers that, yeah, I'm taking this fight with Brock Lesnar, the rematch, a little bit differently this time. One thing I was, very curious after our conversation with Jason Paul last week, and he actually broke the news to us that there was going to be the rematch for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship title between Lesnar and Cena at Night of Champions. Do you feel it's a little rushed? I feel like you could get some more mileage out of this. Personally, I feel like maybe it's a little rushed, but I'm not really sure who else they'd put in that place outside the fact of not having the WWE title on the line, but you can't do that when the pay-per-view's titled Night of Champions. How do you feel about that one?
I'm okay with it being a rematch. I think it would have added something to the rematch if Cena would have been gone for more than 1 week. I think we needed to maybe have Brock Lesnar promo last night. Beautiful. Nicely done. Exactly what you needed. I think if you leave Cena off TV for maybe last night and 1 more week, leave that doubt in fans' heads of where is he, what's he doing, and then hit him with exactly what you just said. Change of attire. Something that's different. Something that makes us believe that, hey, whatever happened at SummerSlam 3 or 4 weeks ago actually did change this guy, and maybe we believe that he's going to have a chance. In this instance, I feel like they just set us up with the exact same John Cena 6 days later telling us he's going to do the same thing that he said he was going to do 2 weeks ago, and he obviously didn't even come close to completing. So I would say, yes, it was a bit rushed for bringing Cena back after the ass kicking that he took, but I'm okay with the rematch happening. I just would have done it a different way.
Right, and I agree, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with it. He came back way too soon. Here's how you book it, WWE. You don't bring Cena back until the pay-per-view. Don't even bring him to Raw. If you're going to have him on Raw, have him do a dark match, whatever. But run vignettes, video vignettes with John Cena training with a MMA fighter. Could be a former one, I don't care, or a current one. They have a good relationship with Dana White. Have him learn some skills of the MMA world. That makes that fight at Night of Champions more believable. John Cena's not going to beat Brock Lesnar in a wrestling match. Lesnar didn't beat Cena in a wrestling match. He beat the hell out of him, basically just German suplexing, punching him in the chest, wearing him down, more or less like a fight like they build it for. I think that's how they should have booked it, showing Cena working out, workout videos. They go, not just because I'm a huge workout guru and I love the inside of a gym, like I love the inside of a, I'll leave that one to go, but I'm telling you, the workout videos, they work. And would you agree with that? Like, was it a couple of years ago when they showed Triple H training for a match? Those are things that you buy into because it's real. You can't fake somebody putting up 325 10 times. You can't fake that. That's real.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've gone on YouTube, gone on Twitter, looked at pictures, looked at workout videos, workout regimens of professional wrestlers. I don't know, to this day, I have no idea why they don't use that more on Raw or SmackDown. I don't know. I mean, I can find stuff on the internet that they never put on TV that interests me more than almost half the stuff that's on TV weekly. So, I mean, I completely agree. Tenfold, put Cena's workout on TV for 4 weeks, little 5-minute segments. That's going to get me more excited than anything that happened in the ring last night with John Cena. I
agree, 100% agree. We'll move past that opening segment. Couple other segments. I'm not going to get into all of Monday Night Raw because there was a lot of it there. I thought some of the segments that they did were actually very well done. Couple of the matches were okay. I want to fast forward to Cesaro RVD. This is basically RVD's one of his last tapings before he goes away for a little bit. His 90-day contract is up. But Cesaro's back in the title picture for the U.S. title with Sheamus. I'm actually really excited about this match, to be honest with you. I'm not a huge Sheamus fan to begin with. I don't buy into his character, but he is very strong in the ring, and he works snug. Cesaro is the same way. I think that this match could be very good for the fact that it's going to be very hard-hitting, and they're really going to show us a different style of professional wrestling match that we haven't really seen before. Are you excited about that match at Night of Champions at all?
I was on my knees praying to God that they'd do something like they did last night when they brought out, and all they had to do was just bring up the U.S. title and have a number one contenders match. How many times on Raw and SmackDown are there just matches that don't mean anything? It's between two guys that don't have a belt and aren't number one contenders and we don't even know what guys are going for the U.S. title, what guys are going for Intercontinental, what guys are doing this, who's a tag team and who's not half the time. So thank God that they gave us RVD, Cesaro, the winner gets Sheamus. Like, it sometimes is that simple, and I think last night they finally hit it on the head where it was, who's going to face Sheamus? Okay, the winner of this match faces Sheamus. Sometimes fans need that, and I needed that from somebody to tell me where Sheamus is going and where Cesaro is going. Today, I know where they're going. 48 hours ago, I had no idea. So I consider that to be a hit in WWE.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, just the little things. Cesaro goes over, and then you got the little gimmick with the title afterwards. Adds a little bit of fuel to the fire. Now the match means a little bit more. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. They have a Twitter war going on, which people can say what they want about Twitter. Enough of the WWE fan base. I'm not going to call it the universe because I think it's fucking stupid. But enough of the WWE fan base follows the WWE on Twitter and follows these guys on Twitter that they follow along with what's going on. So if that's another way they can really build up a feud, so be it. Great. So that is a match that's going to happen at Night of Champions, and we will do our predictions the show before Night of Champions, but that will be, in my estimation, that could potentially be the match of the night if it's not going to be Lesnar-Cena. Lesnar-Cena obviously probably could be just because of the surroundings around it, but we'll see. I expect a very hard-hitting match between those two. I'm excited to see what they do next week on Raw and what they do on SmackDown to build up this match more, because the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title, they're giving the accolades now to the Intercontinental title. The U.S. title, if they want to be of any importance whatsoever, they need to do things with it. So, and this is something that we talked about last week. I'm excited they're doing something about it. If they're not going to merge the IC and the U.S. title together, then make them a league of their own and make sure the feuds are relevant. And I think that they're starting to realize that and hopefully do that a little bit more. I guess with last night's thing with Cesaro and Sheamus. What about the tag team situation, Travis? Again, the Usos, they have a very cool niche genre that they cater to. I'm not huge into. They're cool. They're very Total Diva-ish. That they're on that show. They're very about getting over their character. Their wrestling ability is fine. I just don't really buy into them. But the one thing I do buy into about the Usos is they are a legit tag team. So that is one thing going for them. On Reversal, another legit tag team is Dusty and Cody Rhodes, or I guess the team of Stardust and Goldust. When Goldust first came back to the WWE, he was the workhorse of those 6-man tags that they had with the Shield. He busted his ass, and he still does it too, and I love it. I mean, this man, I wrestled a show with him in Duluth a year ago. Down to earth type of guy. Very, very nice. For him to still be able to go out there and perform at a high level is fantastic. I'm actually, to be honest with you, I'm buying into the whole Stardust Goldust situation. Because of their promos are so crazy weird, they're actually got to be pretty tough to do, so I respect that they're talented and their ability enough to do that. But I think that this match actually could be something very, very much well done if done right, and I am looking forward to it.
I thought, I didn't know, and after weeks and weeks and weeks of Stardust and Goldust, I had no idea until last night what exactly they were doing and what their goal was and what they wanted to do. And now at this point, last night that changed in 2 minutes.
Right.
I wasn't sure when they walked down to the ring. The match was okay. It didn't really wow anybody, but all they needed was the 2 minutes after the match. They needed Goldust to get on the microphone and be pissed off at the Usos for somehow having the titles, which I don't remember the last time the Usos beat somebody of relevance cleanly on like a pay-per-view in like an impressive match. I mean, they've had the belts for a very long time, but it was nice to see Goldust grab the microphone and just make that known that, hey, this is bull. We want to get clean victories over you. Don't lay outside the ring. Now we want the match. It was almost like a mini heel turn, but I don't know if the Usos are face enough in order for anybody to notice. So I was okay with it. And I mean, it definitely sparks my interest much more than anything that Stardust and Goldust have done in the last 2 months.
Right. Absolutely. And we'll see where they go with it. And if it's going to be a face versus face match at Night of Champions or what's going to happen there. Do you even want to talk about Jack Swagger? Should I even go there? Because I know you're not happy about the Jack Swagger situation being on Raw as much as he was last night, or the situations he was in. Do you want to vent about Jack Swagger at all, or should we just skip Jack Swagger?
No, just go past it. My goodness, we can't. I mean, 3 segments with Jack Swagger. Whoever continues to be on the internet and on the dirt sheets that says that the WWE doesn't need part-time talent and all it does is hurt the full-time wrestlers, and that there's such a deep roster, needs to watch last night and tell me why there's 3 segments in a 3-hour span with Jack Swagger being the center of it. I mean, I like me some Jack Swagger. I had him on my fantasy WWE team a couple years ago, and I loved having me some Jack Swagger. But I can't have him in the center of 3 segments on one Raw that's supposed to be going. I'll stop. Never mind. Go on. Go fast.
It's irritating to me because he was involved in this hot program with Rusev, and now they're throwing Bo Dallas to him, and it's like, what? Well, and here we go. What's going to happen with Rusev in the future again? We kind of talked about that last week's episode. I mean, it's ridiculous how much they can switch on a dime at times when one thing's not fully completed. So, I don't know. You're right. I'm going to totally get past that, too. They're the ones getting paid to write this shit, not me. I wouldn't write it the way they did. I'm not saying if that's a good thing or a bad thing, whatever. It's one thing or another. One thing, before we hop back into Raw again, is a week ago, Ryback was on Raw, and it was in Vegas, and the crowd went absolutely nuts for Ryback. I mean, do you remember that, correct?
He's the big guy, man. I love the big guy.
He's the big guy, and playtime's over, and so is he. And I thought that was funny when he said that. Playtime's over, and so are we. It's a joke. I mean, if you don't get it, you're pretty fucking stupid. It's funny. But he actually apparently tweeted out something that he hasn't been himself lately. He needs time away. I really hope that that's a work, because he came off a good performance in Vegas. Sure, it's his hometown. I actually like Ryan Reeves, Ryback. I think he might not be the best wrestler in the world, but he's got a good look, and I think he's funny when he actually has a microphone in his hand. So hopefully he comes back and maybe fills some time on Raw, and maybe not with Chris Axel. Maybe he gets some singles. It's hard to believe that Ryback was main eventing pay-per-views a year ago against CM Punk for the WWE strap.
I couldn't believe you just said it. And now I remember that he was doing that. That was during Cena's, he was gone for some injury, right? And then
yes.
they just threw Ryback in, which, for Ryback, he's a guy. Just let him be Ryan Reeves. Like, he's awesome and he's hilarious when he's out of the ring on Twitter. Wherever like the things that I've mentioned where you can YouTube things, find workouts, find this and that about wrestlers. He's a funny dude. Give him a microphone. That we've all been told how many times in watching wrestling that the best characters come whenever you're just embellishing yourself,
correct.
Like a CM Punk, like whoever else you could think of, Shawn Michaels, like these guys who are just being themselves out there and just embellishing. Let Ryan Reeves do that. That guy's hilarious out of the ring. I hope to God he's not gone long as he is at all.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just sitting here thinking of an ambulance match with CM Punk for the WWE World Title. That was a pay-per-view main event before the network. So they want people to pay $40 to $50 to watch CM Punk and Ryback main event. $40? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Nobody is gonna pay $40 to see that. So
I'm 90% sure that I paid $40 to watch that.
Jesus Christ! I'm telling you,
damn it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'll digress, but Jesus Christ, it's just been something that I've been thinking about, and it's hysterical. But holy hell! All right, let's move past that. Let's go. Paige, AJ. Both very sexy, both, yeah, they're good female workers. I really thought that they were going to push the envelope last night, maybe have those two kiss on the mouth, and I wouldn't have opposed. Maybe it's going to go that way. I don't know. I like that they're actually doing something with the Divas title, though. They're making it important. They're making a story around this title that has been irrelevant for so long. Well, I shouldn't say that, because AJ Lee was the Divas champion for the longest in modern history, or of all time, actually, rather. But she never really had one person to come out and challenge her and give her the type of feud that the title deserved. When Naomi maybe was there, she got hurt. Now we got Paige. Now we got AJ. We have ourselves a feud. I think the WWE can really draw this one out, make some money from it. I'm excited about it. I'm happy about it, and I really hope that they can keep going with it. I don't see another girl in the ladies division that can even step into that spotlight, or that should step into that spotlight. Can you?
I could not. Last night watching that episode of Raw, it made me think of when Raw was 2 hours and it went to 3 hours, however long ago that was. I don't know if it was a year and a half or however long it was.
Right.
But when it became 3 hours, I know I had some conversations with you. I had some conversations with other people that I know that watch wrestling to see how they're going to change it. Is it going to be more replays from previous shows? Is it going to be more of the little guys in the first hour, more like cruiserweight kind of stuff, more Intercontinental title, more U.S. title? And I think it's pretty well known at this point that they've done a very good job of furthering the Divas division. I know Total Divas has a lot to do with that, but I mean, you just look at last night's Raw, there was two very solid segments involving 5 women, and Stephanie McMahon wasn't even on the show. So I thought they've done a very good job of furthering the Divas division. I mean, it's the Divas title picture. Yeah, it's something. The Bellas, yeah, that's something. I mean, it's better than some of the stuff they put together for storyline-wise on some of the lesser titles. So, yeah, I'm interested in the title match. Paige and AJ are both beautiful. They're both good workers. I mean, I'm invested. I didn't know what they were doing last night. It's weird. I mean, they're both weird. They're both kind of crazy. I don't know what they're doing, but I don't fast forward through it, so I guess it's good. It's doing its job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess Natalya probably could potentially step up in that picture. I just really don't buy in her character as well. Her wrestling ability is fine, but
she's got great music. Her walkout music. Natalya's got the best walkout music of all the women, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she looks fine. I mean, she's not bad to look at either, and she can wrestle. So, but you did mention the Bellas, and I thought, and I tweeted this out last night, that I was very, very impressed with that segment, and particularly both Bellas, but Nikki in general. There's a lot of times when I be watching Raw with my fiance, and she actually would watch some of this with me, and she would say, can't you tell this is fake, or can't you tell they're acting? Well, okay, sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's pretty bad. But last night I thought it was fantastic. I thought they really did a good job. I thought Nikki really embellished her role as the older, not the older sister, but the sister who really got the shits, throughout her life. And for her telling Jerry Lawler, "Get out of here, old man," and saying that she wished that Brie would die in the womb, and then the icing on the cake, obviously, just grabbing the hair and throwing her down. I'm not really ever invested in ladies' matches or ladies' situations, but this has been an angle now that I'm invested in because I thought it was really, it felt real to me. Like, I know they probably went backstage afterwards and hugged it out and talked about all the boyfriends that whatever.
That hair pull, man, that hair pull was ferocious.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've ever gotten your hair pulled before, and I'm a man with short hair, but I've got my hair pulled before, it sucks. And I know for a fact that was a very stiff hair pull, but it was highly entertaining segment. It was very entertaining. Nothing in that segment really was that was terrible. I was invested in that segment. I'm invested in the angle. I'm invested in the storyline. I think they're doing a really good job with it. And like you said, and I think this is very important, no Stephanie McMahon on the show last night. So now they're really getting Stephanie out of that picture and really letting it be the Bella Twins against each other. So that could be something. I don't think they need to do it for like a number one contenders for the Divas title, but I really like the fact that they have another important female segment to the card that actually means something that people are emotionally invested in. And I'm not opposed to this match being on the Night of Champions card at all.
No, it's a good storyline. It's a good build. I think the story is right. The build is right. The characters, obviously, both Bellas need to grow a little bit, I would say. So I think Nikki did great. She looks better every single week. My goodness, she looks fantastic again. But, I mean, Brie and Nikki both need to grow a little bit, I would say, in their characters before they're ready for any big actual feud that's bigger than what it is right now. But it's something. I mean, it gives them something to do, and I think it's positive right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess the last thing on Raw, I mean, obviously the John Cena-Bray Wyatt match leading into, the multi-tag match was cool. The Roman Reigns-Seth Rollins situation, I think, is where they're going to go until Dean Ambrose comes back. But I like... You touched on this, the Brock Lesnar promo that was taped the week before in Vegas, because obviously Brock's not making any of these shows, so he taped a lot of these vignettes. For the WWE to give Brock Lesnar the freedom to say whatever he wants in the camera and then to edit it afterwards is brilliant. You're not going to tell Brock Lesnar, cut a promo, be real, don't cuss, don't swear. He's going to swear in every promo he does. They're going to beep it out. And the thing is, I don't even give a shit that they beep it out, because when he talks without a script, and it comes from the heart or it comes from whatever he's feeling inside, it really just sucks you in as a viewer. And you're just like, I can't believe he just said that. It's awesome. It almost makes you like Brock Lesnar more. It almost makes you like gravitate towards him and be like, finally, some man's telling us how it is. I like it.
It's the kind of stuff, Brian. It's the kind of stuff that you and me would say to somebody if it was some guy who was 5'0", 135 pounds that wanted to fight us. This is the kind of shit we would say to him, and that's why it's funny, because Brock Lesnar talking to John Cena like he's a little kid that he's just going to pick up and throw around, and it's awesome.
It's fantastic, and I don't know if the WWE is still trying to bill Brock Lesnar as a heel. It's not working. It's just not going to work because he's beating the hell out of John Cena, who most of the WWE fan base is growing tired of. And he's telling us how it is on the microphone, which is what we've been wanting for a long time. CM Punk did it in Vegas. Anytime somebody gets on the mic and does it, we say, that's awesome, that's great. Lesnar's just going out there and shooting the breeze, how it should be told, and I'm looking forward to the promos leading up to Night of Champions. I hope they give him the mic more often. I'm a huge Lesnar fan. I mean, if you remember a year ago when the WWE gave him a microphone and he said he was cutting a promo, threw the microphone at Paul Heyman and says, "Say something stupid, Paul." I mean, these are just things, they just tape it because it's what comes out of his mouth. It doesn't make any sense, but it's so funny and it's so real, you can't edit it out. I think they need to do that with more of the talent. I love the fact that they're Lesnar's not going to do it any other way. So, and he also has some pull in the company as well. What are you looking forward to most this coming week on SmackDown and Raw? Are you looking forward to any angles getting built more? Title pictures getting a little bit clearer? What's your biggest looking ahead for the week?
I would point to the Reigns and Rollins situation. I think that's something that's interesting. I think it's been ignored for a handful, I guess, of month or whatever it's been since Rollins turned his back on the Shield. I think that Ambrose obviously was the guy who was with Rollins, putting together unbelievable matches, stealing the show like we talked about last week every time they got the opportunity. Now now Ambrose is gone for a few weeks shooting that movie that he's doing for WWE Films. They wrote him off TV. Now I thought it was the perfect idea last night to bring Roman Reigns into the fold. He's a guy that's got unfinished business with Rollins. I don't know that Kane is needed to be in this feud. I think the reason they're probably including him is because they don't think that they can let Reigns or Rollins lose clean at this point with Money in the Bank in Rollins' hands. Reigns being the guy that they want to bring up as the next big guy. So maybe Kane gives them an opportunity there to protect both those guys and not have them be losing clean. But however they're going to do it, I think it's an interesting situation where I wouldn't mind having Roman Reigns take a few weeks and say, I need to defend my boy Ambrose while he's gone, and taking it out on Seth Rollins.
I agree completely. It's something I'm looking forward to. The one thing that I'm looking forward to the most in the next coming week is what does the WWE do with the Viper, Randy Orton? My favorite wrestler, I think the best wrestler in the WWE, I think the best wrestler in the world altogether picture. He was not on Raw. Not sure what they're going to do with him. I'm looking forward to, because you're not leaving him off the pay-per-view. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good week of wrestling. I think that they really, their Raw was not as good as it should have been, especially going against the primetime Emmys. But they got one more Raw before Monday Night Football. So they need to really step it up on Labor Day. SmackDown's moving from Fridays to Thursdays, so they're going to start competing with Thursday Night Football starting October 2nd. They need to start getting hot, and they got to make sure it's good. And this Lesnar-Cena situation is one thing. They need to build the other things around them, and that's the U.S. title, the Intercontinental title, Rollins-Ambrose situation with Roman Reigns in there. A lot of opportunities. I just hope they do what they should be doing to make sure ratings can keep up with the NFL programming, because football season is here, people, and that means WWE needs to step up their game, and I think they will. I do have some faith in them. I guess we'll see. I'm hoping so as a viewer, because I'm still going to watch Raw, and I'll flip back to NFL at commercial breaks if I'm watching it live. I hope they don't drop the ball on this one. They do all the right things, and I guess we'll see moving forward. But that is all we're going to talk about pro wrestling-wise as far as the WWE Monday Night Raw this week, folks. Coming up next, like I mentioned earlier in the show, is Lance Hoyt. You can follow him on Twitter at Lance Hoyt. This is going to be a two-part segment, so we're gonna go ahead and air the first part with you here. He's going to bring us through his time of breaking into the wrestling business, getting signed by TNA, and then next week we'll more than likely end up talking about his time in WWE and his New Japan wrestling days. Great mind in pro wrestling. He taught me a lot in the match that I actually had with him last year in my college town of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. A great talent, underutilized on the independent scene. I think he could be around a lot more places, and I think he could be back in the WWE someday. I think his age might be a problem, and when we ask him that question, he kind of dances around it. He is, obviously getting up there in wrestling years. So we'll see. I had a great time with the interview with him. I know Travis did too. We learned a lot. Next week, we'll go ahead and recap SmackDown and Raw. It'll be Labor Day. It's a holiday for many of us that Monday. I guess, any parting words for the Pencil podcast fan base, Dirt?
Oh, just be safe. Have a safe holiday weekend. Go Badgers. Get on the golf course if you can. Catch some sun. Come back with a tan on Tuesday, and we'll learn a little bit more about the world of wrestling.
Absolutely. And don't forget to spend some time in the gym, damn it. Don't forget at all. Get in the gym, get big, get outside, get tan, shotgun a beer, Yeah, we'll see you next week on iTunes, Stitcher, PodBean, and YouTube. For me, it's at Real Renny D. Travis is at Travis Mester, or follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
Hey, this is Chris with Spot Monkey Media. Are you a professional wrestler, a promoter, a business owner? Spot Monkey Media offers creative media solutions for your brand or business. Whether it's merchandise design or promotional material for your next event, Spot Monkey Media will work hands-on to bring your ideas to life. Spot Monkey Media. Create your legacy. Get a free high five when you mention this podcast. Connect with us on Twitter at Spot Monkey Media.
I have voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me.
What up, everybody? It's Renny D, the host of The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, PodBean, and YouTube. Each and every week, I do my best to bring you exciting guests to look inside the world of professional wrestling. I'll use my 11 years experience in professional wrestling to look at the product on TV, as well as dissect the news and rumors. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
You think you know me?
We are having a great episode, but coming up next is our guest of the evening. You've been listening to The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast with me, Renny D, and my friends. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. And follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest here this week. And I say special guest because this is a man I have the utmost respect for. It's a man I actually had the privilege and the honor of sharing the squared circle with last October at an event in Wisconsin. It was a 5-man scramble, and this man just blew my mind away as far as what his ability in the ring is, how smart he is when it comes to professional wrestling. And my guest this week is none other than Lance Hoyt. Some of you may know him as Vance Archer from the WWE. He is a big-time name in professional wrestling. Lance, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, no problem. I mean, when we sit here and we think about having guests on, I'm contemplating different people and I'm sending out messages. I tell you what, I had this idea for this podcast probably 6 to 8 months ago, and Lance, I'm sure you remember this. You were one of the first people I sent a text message out because I wanted to get you on the show as soon as possible. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a reason for that. It's no BS. It's a man I wanted to get on this show. It's a man I wanted to ask questions because I learned a lot from this man in just the several hours we had a chance to hang out with and wrestle one match, and now I get a chance to kind of get some more information from him. So that's great. First off, coming off a huge victory here this past weekend on the independent circuit here it was actually in Red Cliff, Wisconsin for Heavy On Wrestling. The match you actually beat me in last October made you the number one contender for the Heavy On Wrestling Heavyweight Championship title. You went in the match against Arya Daivari, for those of you who don't know, is Sean Daivari's younger brother, and Trevor Murdoch in a triple threat match. How did that go first off for you?
Well, obviously it went really good because I'm the new heavy on champion, man.
Yeah, no, and I saw...
Congratulations.
And I actually saw some photos from the show online. It looked like Booker T was actually handing you the title. Can you kind of like walk us through what the whole Booker T's, why he was involved in the match and kind of what that all entailed?
Yeah, the whole event was definitely a star-studded event. You had the likes of, obviously, Booker T, who was there. The Steiner brothers wrestled on the same event. X-Pac was on the same event. Jake the Snake Roberts was there. Just so many names and people. Bob Holly was there. Trevor Murdoch, obviously, a lot of the top independent talent around the country, that were a part of Heavy On Wrestling. It was just one of those events that was really special and really cool because there were so many good talents involved, both from the history of the business to the present of the business, to the future of this business. And so Booker was kind of more like a guest general manager for the evening. I know him and Ari had a little bit of confrontation at the beginning of the show, and I think it was just one of those situations where he came out to congratulate the new champion and me, and ultimately the people got what they wanted because Ari decided to try to get Booker in my space, and then Booker took care of business, kicked him, and then gave the people everything they wanted in the Spinneroonie. So, it was an awesome, cool event, an awesome, cool evening, an awesome, cool moment, for the fans.
Right, absolutely. And how did that actual show draw in Red Cliff, Wisconsin? Because it was an outdoor show, but they had an awning over top of the ring, it looked like. As far as crowd capacity, was there an estimate as far as what the crowd was?
I don't know what the crowd capacity was, but from what I saw, it was full. Everything they had set up, the bleachers, the seating and whatnot, it was full. You know, I don't want to suspect because I didn't ask, but it was a really cool event. Like, they did have the awning, they had a full lighting trestle, an entrance, they had everything there to make it a big-time professional wrestling event. You know, so it was a lot of fun, not only for the wrestlers and the fans, and it was an outdoor event. There was a little bit of worry about rain and stuff, which I think is where the awning came into play, but ultimately, you know, the rain didn't get us. It actually just made it cooler and easier and better for all the people and the fans and the wrestlers who were involved in the event, especially being an outdoor event in August. You know, and, you know, Red Cliff's a little bit out there,
right.
But it was cool. It was fun. The casino definitely took care of us in amazing ways. And like I said, I think for the fans all around, because they got the meet and greet earlier in the day, and then they got the wrestling event that was absolutely top-notch that evening. You know, it was just a cool event all the way around. And it was a full capacity crowd from what I saw. I have no clue what the numbers were, but it was full.
Awesome. And that's good.
Deal.
That's good.
Look,
I mean,
Lance, let me jump in here, Ryan. Lance, now that you've got this new strap around your belt, you've got this new strap that you get to carry around. What's the future for this? When's your next match? Where can people find you?
Me personally, I'll be in 3 different states this weekend wrestling. I'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee on Friday for Next Level Wrestling. I'll be in Atlanta for First Class Championship Wrestling on Saturday, and then I'll be in Austin, Texas for Inspire Pro on Sunday. You know, as far as Heavy On is concerned, I'm not exactly sure when the next event is, but we'll be setting something up. Somebody can challenge me. I know there's a number 1 contender out there right now. I don't know if he should be the number 1 contender because I'm going to have to put him in his place. But, you know, it is what it is. And when Heavy On runs another show, you know it's going to be first class, it's going to be top-notch, and everybody's going to have a great time.
Perfect. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, the number 1 contender for this strap that we're talking about is Darren Corbin. He's pretty popular on the internet and on the independent scene throughout the Midwest and the West Coast. I'm sure Arya Daivari is probably going to want to invoke his rematch clause for that as well. But Lance, you mentioned this weekend you got 3 different events in 3 different states, and we're going to tackle the independent scene, you know, coming up here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's rewind the tape here a little bit. How old are you right now, Lance?
I want to pretend that I'm in my 20s.
Sure.
So let's leave it at that.
All right. Sounds good. Well, how long have you been wrestling professionally for?
This is my 14th year, 2014. It's 14 years to the date. So, you know, it was July of this year that it was 14 years exactly. You know, it's been an awesome, amazing journey and career. I've had a lot of fun. You know, different people would see it as different success levels, but I think I've had a really good career. You know, I've been kind of a journeyman. I've been a little bit of everywhere and worked with a little bit of everybody, but, you know, I think it's one of those things that's made me work as hard as I've worked every day that I've ever stepped in the ring.
When did you get the first notion that you wanted to be a professional wrestler?
Well, you know, I didn't really even get to start watching wrestling until I was in high school, because my little hometown, you know, we didn't have anything until WCW Nitro was on TNT. So, you know, that was my first real full-time exposure to professional wrestling. I was a big Sting fan because I was a big fan of the movie The Crow, and that was kind of the time that he donned that persona. You know, and I started watching it religiously every week, every Monday, you know, and on into college, you know, but I was playing football back in high school and college, and, you know, that was something I really wanted to accomplish, you know, and once I got out of football, you know, I was looking for some different athletic avenue, and wrestling came available to me. You know, I was working in some nightclubs in Austin, Texas. The guy who owned the club knew a guy who had started his own promotion in school and made the introduction, and, you know, the rest is history. I went in and, you know, I really didn't think wrestling would hurt as bad as it did, because I didn't know anything. I just knew what I saw on TV. I knew it was very physical. I knew the guys put their bodies and their lives, you know, on the line every night, but I didn't really know how much physicality was involved in professional wrestling, because I think people have a misconceived notion of what it is, and they think it's just a show and it's just TV and it's just theatrics, but the physical part is extremely real. It was one of those things that made me almost not go back to it, but, the guy worked it out with me that ran the school and the organization, and, I started training pretty quick after that and was driving, 45 minutes every day to go and train with one guy. It was awesome, but it was grueling.
Right, and you mentioned coming up in high school and college you played football. Now, you're from Texas originally. We know that Texas football is huge. In Texas, it's a religion itself. Travis and I are from Wisconsin. Travis was a starting quarterback for a squad up here. Nothing compared to Texas football. Can you kind of give us, what's Texas football actually like? Is it as big as the hype as they make it up to be, or how would you explain it?
Oh, yeah, especially you start getting into the bigger schools around the state. My school is a pretty small school, but even there, in our small town, it was a small 3A high school, but it was still one of those things where every Friday night, the stadium was packed. People would travel around the state and follow us and go to the games. It was just one of those things that, Friday night football in Texas and high school football is one of the most popular things. I think they're running the state championship games at the Cowboys Stadium now. And they had the biggest crowd in high school football history this last year for one of the 5A state championship games, So it's just one of those things that just keeps getting bigger and crazier, and more people are into it. And then you start getting into the college scene. It's just as big with the University of Texas, Texas A&M, all the smaller schools, the school that I went to, Texas State University. There's so many schools with so many good programs that they're producing so many good football players. So it actually, as crazy as it can be, it's very tough because there's so many high-quality players coming out of every high school in the state.
Lance, how realistic is Varsity Blues off the field, that movie? we got to know from up here in Wisconsin.
That's definitely a Hollywood version. But I think they take the stories from here, there, and everywhere, and they kind of, extreme it up and make it a little bit bigger. And, I actually tried out for that movie when because they filmed it kind of in Austin. They filmed it all over, and actually one of the schools that they play in that movie was a school that was in my district that we played, the Elgin Wildcats, the purple and silver team that they played in that movie. And a lot of the guys that were in that movie that were the football extras were guys I played football with at Texas State. So, it was kind of cool getting to see them. And, I went in and I wanted to be I was a quarterback in high school, so that's what I tried out for the movie. But, they kind of already had everything set, and the guys in the movie, it's a movie. But they put them through like 2 weeks of basically football training, and, the actors came in and did a lot of the same training with the guys at the same time, so everybody looked very real. It was a cool moment, but I didn't get into this movie, so, it's all good.
So, sounds similar to Wisconsin up here. I know 10 years after high school, I was a lot better at high school football than I was when I was actually playing high school football. When I talk about the stories, it's a lot more fun now than it used to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So your athletic ability, obviously, on the football field, it does help you out in a professional wrestling ring. I mean, you're a big man to begin with. What are you, like? Are you 6'7", 6'8", like 270?
Sure, we'll let you say. We'll agree with that.
All right. I was in the ring with this man, people, and he's very tall, and he's very well built. He's got a great look. Now, when you broke into the business, though, back in 2000, it would have been, what were we dealing with as far as statistics? What were you at that point as far as weight? Were you skinny? Did you have some size on you at that point? I guess. What was Lance Hoyt in 2000?
Lance Hoyt in 2000 was a skinnier test knockoff. If that makes it, if that gives you a clue.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps out there. So you started out in 2000. You were working nightclubs. Your owner knew a guy who got you into the ring. Mm-hmm. You thought about walking away. He talked you into staying. How long? Now, I'm assuming you probably worked the independents around the Texas area for the most part. Is that accurate?
Right.
How is that? 'Cause I've heard many different stories about independent wrestling in Texas, as far as like how the fans are down there compared to up here. And nowadays it's not as bad, or it's not as prevalent as it used to be. But, listen to some of these podcasts with guys from Texas, from the Mid-South region, talking about Texas, back in the day. When you broke into the business, what was wrestling like in Texas at that point?
It hasn't really changed a whole lot. The independent scene has its hits and misses, its good, its bad. When I was first starting out, I was traveling wherever I could, whenever I could. There was a great organization in this Dallas area, and that's why I ended up moving into Dallas. And it was called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling. And they actually ran a weekly show, and they actually had TV in Dallas. They ultimately created their own event center, or PCW Arena, as we called it. They took an old movie theater, gutted it out, set it up, retrofit it for a wrestling event with the ring in the middle, the raised seating, the theater seating. They had big screens. At one point, we had 4 big screens that played videos and entrance videos and live feed of what was happening in the ring. So it was one of those places that was beyond cool to be a part of, because, a lot of independent wrestling, a lot of the shows are once a month, or they're, even less than that. And very rarely do you find anybody that's running any more shows than that. And like I said, at that time, these guys were running a weekly show. I did so for almost 10 years. So it was kind of unseen and unheard of on the independent scene, and it was a great place to be a part of, because to get to work every week, to run storylines, to create characters, to learn to work TV, to work in front of some awesome, amazing crowds, on an average, we had about 300 or 400 weekly, and then once every 2 to 3 months, we ran a big event, kind of like a pay-per-view event with a name and a theme and all that stuff behind it. And, we get 700,000 plus people at these shows, and for a guy coming up on the independent scene, it was invaluable just because of the amount of time I was getting to work, the people that I was getting to work in front of, and learning to work for something more than just a live crowd, and that was TV. So, it was an amazing opportunity that, unfortunately, most people on the independent scene in Texas, or really anywhere, isn't getting that opportunity to do so anymore. So it was an awesome place to be a part of. So that was probably the best part of my working independence when I first started out. Was PTW here in Dallas, Texas, Professional Championship Wrestling, and I even still worked for them long into my TNA time. So it was a great relationship.
Right.
Okay. Now, Lance, one thing that, for our listeners anyway, a lot of our listeners might watch WWE Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, things like that, where they're seeing matches that are 3, 4, 5, up to 12 or 13 minutes long, and that's the amount of time they're seeing people work. When you're saying the amount of time you were able to work when you were in PCW, the amount of work you were able to do, give our listeners an opportunity to understand, are you putting together longer matches or just more matches per week? What are you getting to do at that point that you don't think people might get an idea of when they're watching on TV?
Well, you got to understand, we were filming for TV, so the matches weren't long matches, but to get to work weekly at the same place with a lot of the same guys, really good talent, like I said, to create storylines, to find the character for yourself, to work for TV, to film backstage interviews, to do all the things that are really necessary to be successful at the next level, whether it was TNA, WWE, or wherever you go that runs big-time programs. Working in independence is great. It's invaluable. It's awesome because the people and the fans are great. But when you're just working a live event, you're just working for that crowd. You're not working for TV. And working for TV is so much different than working just for a live crowd. Right. And that's where the invaluable time came into play. It wasn't the amount of time I got to work matches as far as how the length of them, but I'm just saying the amount of matches I got to work and working for TV was just something that you don't get around the country, especially on any kind of consistent basis.
Right, exactly. And for those of you who don't know, like for us up here, I mean, if a promotion is going to run in the Midwest per se, it's once a month, if that. So for Lance to be able to work every week, it's huge. And when he talks about working for TV differs from the audience, it is a huge difference. I remember up here when we first started working for TV, there's so many different things that you have to do when you're working for TV, and the audience at that point, and no offense to the audience, but they kind of become an afterthought, and you really work for that TV audience more so. But it's huge because that does, as far as for you, I bet you that did wonders for you, obviously coming into your TNA and your WWE days, because they preach that when you're there. I mean, I remember when I went to WWE last year, William Regal told me, that's the hard cam, that's who you make love to, everybody else is kind of an afterthought. And that's exactly kind of what it is, and that's awesome that you had that opportunity to work weekly shows. And then I guess if anybody has that opportunity now, that would shock me. I don't think there's another independent scene out there that I can even think of that does weekly shows. I think monthly shows, maybe bi-weekly at most, unless, we're talking Ring of Honor, Dragon Gate, something like that. But your typical independent show isn't doing that. That's a fact. Now, is PCW still around today, or are they no longer in business?
The family that owned PCW, a few years ago, about the same time that I started my WWE time, they ended their full-time run because they moved facilities and a bunch of stuff changed, so it became a more difficult process for them. The family got into more of the MMA scene. They run now an MMA show, but even their MMA shows only run once every 3-4 months. But they run like once in a while shows. Like they've got a show coming up on November 8th, and I give them a lot of credit because whenever they promote the shows, the last two, they did a reunion show that I was a part of, and then they did a show after that I wasn't a part of. But both the shows drew like over 1,100 people each. So the nostalgic factor in this area for the company, plus just the amount of wrestling fans that are around here and the promotions they did for it, they drew amazing numbers for a company that, like I said, doesn't run really anymore. So they're not on any kind of full-time basis in that stuff.
Okay. Who do you, on the independent scene right now, would you say that you've worked for that you think runs primarily on a full-time basis? And if you could, I guess, define what that full-time basis is, just to kind of give our listeners a perspective of how things have changed on the independent scene. Is there one promotion that you work for on a consistent basis, and that that they run on a consistent basis?
I don't work for anybody on a consistent basis just because a lot of my New Japan schedule doesn't allow anything like that. But there are several companies, that are here in Texas. There's one, it's a smaller company. They've really created their own niche. It's a lot of great guys that are working extremely hard and putting on a good small product. And they run like a bi-weekly show out of kind of the northeast or northwest Dallas area. But it's not something that's really gotten really big. They draw 100, 200 plus people in their small building on a consistent basis. But other than that, I know there's PWS up in the Northeast in the Jersey area that runs a really good program, and they run about once every month or 2 months or something like that. But even then, like I said, it's not a full-time consistent thing, but their quality of shows is top-notch. So it's one of those places that people really get to see something big and good. And, you can talk about Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor does TV tapings, but they're not running every week in different cities or every week, they're not running shows. They do have their live events and things like that, but it's still on a more sporadic basis. It's not as every week you're going to be here, every week you're going to be there. WWE is really the only company that at this point is still doing that, and they may be even cutting down their travel schedule as far as that's concerned. I know they're going to continue the live event schedule, but as far as their TV, I've heard rumors that they may, start doubling up on tapings and things like that. And that's a very old school thing. That's how they used to do. They used to film 2 or 3 Raws at a time back in the day. So, it's one of those things. The business has an ebb and flow. It has good times and bad times. It has, times when it's just everyone's consistent and there's a lot of wrestling going on at the same time, and there's times when it slows down and there's not as much. So, like I said, what I got in the PCW days is something that I don't think exists at all, except for maybe WWE, as far as a weekly consistent show. Right.
And now, before we hop into your TNA days, I have a couple quick questions yet here on the independent scene. First one, who, maybe you shared some matches with a particular person, or who taught you the most, I guess, when you were breaking into the business? Outside of your trainer, was there a particular person that you spent time with in the ring that really, I guess, kind of shaped you as a character, as a professional wrestler, and really helped guide you along the way?
Man, I couldn't name just one person. I've been involved with so many amazing talents from every level of this business that have helped me out in so many tremendous ways. To try to name one set person would be impossible, because I've had the privilege and opportunity to work with so many different great people around Texas, the country, the world, that have helped me, understand and become what I have become at this point in my career. So, I apologize to anybody that may feel like I left them out, but I don't want to start naming like 1 or 2 people, and then other people who are truly influential in my career don't get mentioned. So I've had so many, man.
Sure. No, absolutely. And this other question is it's something I read online. I don't know if there's truth to this or not, but it's kind of hysterical if it is true. Breakdown. Is this true? Is this a real life thing? Did this really happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I went down to Corpus for a wrestling event very early in my career. I completely forgot my gear and stuff like that. Showed up, and all I had was like sweatpants and not sweatpants, but like athletic pants and a tank top and stuff like that. So I on the spot created this character, which I called him Breakdown, and it's more kind of a urban hip hop badass. I don't know how else to say it. And so it was an on the spot creation, and it actually got over down there in the South Texas Corpus Christi area. But that was really the only place I ever did it, and it was only for a few events, and never lasted very long.
Okay. And now, fast forward now, 2004 is when you signed with TNA, is that correct?
Yep, March of 2004.
Now, when you signed there, can you walk us through that process? Did they just find out about you from the independent scene and reach out to you? Did you have to send tapes and reach out to them? Can you kind of walk us through how that happened for you?
Yeah, I tried several different avenues that didn't work, and then I did an autograph signing show here in Dallas, and the guy had brought in a girl. Her name was Lollipop. She was one of the cage dancers for TNA back when they had their weekly program, and it was a little more risque show. And, we just got talking, and I told her about my attempts to get into TNA, and she was like, well, give me a tape and a picture, and I'll take it to somebody that's in charge. And I said, okay, cool. I didn't know her or think anything much of it. So I gave her a tape and a picture, and she took it to Bob Ryder, who at the time was a much more influential guy as far as the booking was concerned. And like that next week, after I'd given her the tape and the picture, I got an email and was like, all right, here's some Explosion dates, because they were using Explosion back in the day as kind of their tryout show for independent talents. And so I had my first tryout in, I think I want to say summer of 2003 or somewhere around, or the end of summer 2003. I went several times, and then in March of 2004, I was on for what would have been my third or fourth Explosion match. But by the time I got to Nashville, when we walked in the building, my name was actually on the board for the show that night. And I guess they tried to contact me, but I'd been traveling and didn't get the email. And then when I got there, it was just on the board with Kid Cash. And Johnny Swinger's wife was having a baby, which is why he couldn't be there, and they put me in that spot. And then I did well that night. I had Jerry Jarrett, who was still involved with the company that night, stand up and shake my hand after the match was over. And that night they offered me a contract, so I went with it.
Perfect. And now you knew, when you saw your name on the board and the circumstances surrounding the situation, you knew this was a big opportunity for you. What, as far as your mindset going into this match, it's another wrestling match. You've done thousands of them or hundreds of them, but you got to be approaching this maybe just a little bit differently, because if you do well, big things can happen for you. Do you remember kind of what you were thinking about or what your feelings were like? Because you've done Explosion matches before, but this one has a little bit different merit to it because of the potential outcome that it could have for you.
Right. I did and I didn't. It was one of those situations where I know I was nervous, but I had been working so hard for it, so it was kind of like, yes, I have this chance. Let's do this. Let's get this. Let's perform. Let's get a job. I knew that it wasn't a full job yet, but I knew if I did well, there was an opportunity for something like that. And it kind of happened so quick, I didn't have much time other than that day to think about it. It's not like they'd contacted me the week before or several days before and said, hey, by the way, you're going to be on our main show come Wednesday, and so get ready. So I literally walked in the building and was like, oh, crap, I'm on the show. And then that day, everything got put together, and we did the match, and everything was great. Like I said, I got a contract that evening.
Awesome. Now, how long were you with TNA for?
5 years. I was there almost 5 years to the date. I did my last match right before my birthday in 2009, and then I think it aired on my birthday, February 28th. I want to say that of 2009, and then my contract was null and void, and then I moved on, to say the least.
Sure.
But at the time I'd been doing a lot of Japan stuff before that, I started going to Japan for some smaller companies while I was still with TNA. I was actually on tour with All Japan when I had the conversation with the TNA office about the situation that had come up, and, you know, me leaving the company and all that stuff. So I knew that, you know, when my last match was going to happen, which, you know, I agreed to simply for the fact that in this business, a lot of times we don't get that opportunity to have that last match and see our friends that we, you know, that we've been up and down the roads with. You know, a lot of times it's just here today, gone tomorrow. And so I had an opportunity to go and say goodbye to people that I actually liked, cared about. You know, so it was an okay situation, and I knew they hadn't been doing anything with me, and they weren't planning to do anything with me. So, you know, it was kind of an amicable split. There was kind of okay, you're not doing crap, so I want to get out of here. And they're like, we're not going to do stuff with you, so we're going to let you go. And it was just like, okay, cool. We're both on the same page, unfortunately. You know?
Right, yeah, and that was going to be my next question. You know, at the end of the 5 years, was it more of your decision kind of saying, hey, I don't really want to renew my contract, or if it was mutual? And it sounds like it was mutual, which is great. You know, I mean, most times now you don't have that. It's either you get a notice of release or vice versa.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, I just signed a contract a few months before that, and it was just a situation where they were coming to a point where they needed to use me or pay me for not being there. Like I said, I was doing good and getting bookings in Japan and doing well at that point. I knew that they weren't doing anything extremely positive at that point. So it was just, like I said, it was kind of a both of us were like, all right, cool, just time.
Sure. And how would you, I guess, in 5 years in TNA, how would you sum up your time in the 5 years there?
What do you mean?
As far as, I mean, we hear things a lot about the differences between TNA and WWE, and this is actually this was a question that we got from somebody on Twitter. They want to know what was the primary difference between TNA and WWE. And I've read and heard different things from different people who've been in both promotions, strictly say, you know, things like, well, the professionalism in New York is so much higher and it's so much more well run. But I mean, as far as TNA goes in your time there, you were there in the early years yet where it was booming and people really thought TNA, this is a company to really watch out for. They could do something special, and they still could if they could just figure some things out. But I mean, you definitely were there during some of the good years. I mean, I watched it pretty, you know, during that time as well. I thought the wrestling was great, and I'm glad that you were a part of it. But I guess, how would you describe your experience there? Was it all positive? I mean, I'm sure you learned a lot and you got a lot of exposure, which was great. But I mean, I guess to sum it up, how would you put it for yourself?
It was a very up and down 5 years for me. You know, there were good times. There were like what the hell times. You know, obviously I had three different names in my 5 years there, going from Dallas to Lance Hoyt to Lance Rock. You know, the Dallas years were pretty cool just because they put us kind of up there with the tag stuff with Kid Cash and I, and then, you know, that fell off, and then the Lance Hoyt thing that came about and the Hoyt-mania and all that stuff with the fans was really cool. You know, and then on the little Lance Rock with the Rock and Raven section, which was a lot of fun, but we felt like more could have been done with us and with it, you know, and we were having some really good matches with the Motor City Machine Guns and LAX and those guys. So there were good times and bad times, but that's just the business. You know, obviously it was a different time in TNA's lifespan because it went from, you know, I got to be a part of the weekly pay-per-views on into their first national TV exposure with Fox Sports Network, and then on into their first really big exposure with Spike TV, and then their first real major 3-hour regular pay-per-view events, you know, starting with Victory Road and being a part of the first Lockdown, the All-Cage pay-per-view, to being a part of the first Bound for Glory event. You know, I got to be a part of a lot of TNA's first, which was a lot of fun and very cool. You know, I have to say the biggest difference to me between TNA and WWE, obviously the size and the money is one thing, but TNA was, at the time, much more of a wrestling company, whereas WWE is very much an entertainment company. You know, WWE was thriving on the fact that they had some amazing wrestlers and they were having amazing matches in the X Division and things like that. And like I said, WWE is very strong with their characters and their character development and things like that, you know. So that's probably, to me, the biggest difference was one was truly a wrestling company and one was truly an entertainment company.
Right. One thing I've always been interested in, Lance, I guess, when you were in the Rock and Rave faction, Voodoo Kin Mafia, obviously initials are VKM. Who came up with that idea? Were you part of that, or were you just, I guess, along for the ride? Because obviously was it a direct shot at Vince, or do you know anything behind that as far as the name of that situation?
I don't know anything about why they did that. That was those guys, and they put it together. I kind of came into that at the end, which ultimately led into my on-screen relationship with Christy Henney, which ultimately turned into the Rock and Rave Perfection, and so on and so forth. There had to be something there with the VKM and all that stuff, but I don't know any of the backstory to it, man, so I couldn't give you any dirt on that.
Sure. No, that's fine. I mean, just obviously you worked with a lot of great people in TNA, so obviously a great experience for you as far as, like you said, wrestling-wise, and obviously you got to really, really work on things, learn a lot of things, which probably really helped you when you went to Japan. Now, how long between your TNA tenure and your WWE tenure did you perform in Japan?
I don't really follow what you're saying. I was doing Japan while I was still at TNA, and then as soon as I left TNA, like I taped my last TNA on like a Monday or Tuesday. My contract ended on Wednesday. I was down at FCW in Tampa on Thursday doing my tryout for WWE, and then within that next week I was off the contract with WWE.
Are you tired of being nagged by your significant other for not doing enough around the house? Well, this will show them. Download The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast with me, Renny D, and my friends on iTunes today, or subscribe on PodBean, Stitcher, or follow on YouTube. We dissect the world of professional wrestling each and every week with the occasional guest appearance of professional wrestling personalities. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.